doesn't love a good underdog story? Like David and Goliath. Here's David without armor, without a sword, and he's able to defeat Goliath with just a rock and a sling. It seems as if our hearts are naturally attracted to the underdog, the one who doesn't have the power, the one who has all of the odds stacked against them. We love this story of David and Goliath unless we are Goliath in the story. Think about Tony Stark, Iron Man. In a world of have versus have-nots, Iron Man is definitely a have. He is a Goliath of a person. He has super wealth, powerful friends, and any weapon you can imagine at his disposal. Early in Tony Stark's life, he fought for the Goliaths of the world. He wanted to offer weapons to make sure that the Goliaths of the world remain in power. But then he had a change of heart. He started to fight for the have-nots of the world, to defend those who couldn't defend themselves. In other words, he started offering hope. Hope is a word we sometimes use for the kingdom of God because it's a place where the poor are welcomed, those who are hungry are filled with good things, those who are mourning are comforted. But we have to be careful when we talk about this kingdom of God, a place where have and have not is turned on its head. Because when you're preaching among the Goliaths of the world, things could get ugly. When Jesus talked about the kingdom of God, he often used veiled and disguised language. And in order to understand the kingdom of God, we have to understand the way that Jesus used language and the way that we use language. There are 4 ways in which we share information with each other. Imagine that you have called a meeting at your church because someone wants to change the sanctuary carpet to green. First, we have a public discourse or public language. This language is out in the open. It's for everyone's ears. The language is safe and predictable. Someone stands up and says, "I love the color green. It's the most appropriate liturgical color of the year because it's common time and Epiphany. It represents life and growth in faith." And then, of course, you have a rebuttal. Someone stands up and says, "Green carpet is terrible. It's trendy. It's going to be out of the popular eye in just a few years, and frankly, it's ugly." And then you have the second kind of language, which is private. So you break for coffee, and that's when you go into the hallways and there are different groups of people, and that's when there is a private discourse, which is often more honest than the public discourse. We say things like, "I don't really like the green carpet, but I had to say so because Grandma's in the sanctuary. So when it comes time to vote, I'll be voting against it in the secret ballot." The private discourse, that private language, is not intended for everyone. It's not that it's full of gossip. It's not that it's untrue. It's just not to be heard out in the open. It's like when a newscaster starts talking to her coworker and forgets that the camera is rolling and that they're live. Sometimes it's hilarious. Sometimes it's cringeworthy, like when a politician forgets that his mic is on and the cameras have stopped rolling, and he really says what he thinks about someone. So then you call everyone back into the sanctuary to talk about the green carpet again, and here is where we have disguised language. Someone gets up and they don't say whether or not they like the green carpet or whether they don't like the green carpet. They stand up and they tell a story about a frog who lives in Ireland in the clover of the fields. It's obvious that they want the carpet to be green, but they won't say it out in the open. They use disguised language. This is some of the ways in which Jesus talks about the kingdom of God. He uses parables. For example, a sower went to sow some seeds. When Jesus told this parable about the sower, even the disciples didn't know what Jesus was talking about. Yes, the parable is about good soil and the abundance of God's good news being fruitful. but it's also about God's extravagant grace, because this sower is throwing seeds everywhere into the thorny ground and into the shallow ground. And this parable can get dangerous, especially if you think the thorns of the world don't deserve the seeds that God is offering. Or take the story of the Good Samaritan, for example. Yes, the story is about how to be compassionate and how to care for those who have been abused, but it's also secretive language about the difference between Jews and Samaritans and what is dividing them both. So then we have defiant language. This is out in the public arena, but the language is no longer predictable, nor is it safe. It's someone who gets up and says, if the carpet is green, we're no longer giving any money, we're going to write a letter to the bishop, and we are leaving the church. And Jesus used this kind of language too. Jesus said, "Woe to you, Pharisees. You're like whitewashed tombs. You're the blind leading the blind." It's important to know how Jesus is using language so that we might understand the language of the kingdom of God, this blessed place in which the poor are welcomed, the mournful are comforted, and the hungry are filled with good things. Sometimes when we think about the kingdom of God, we think about blessings or being blessed, and rightfully so. Jesus said on the Sermon on the Mount, "Blessed are the poor, blessed are the meek, blessed are those who are persecuted." But if we're not careful, talking about blessings can perpetuate a division between have and have not. That is not the gospel. Or in other words, sometimes we can think that I am blessed, therefore I have received something from God. I am a have, and that person over there who doesn't have the same blessings that I have is a have not. Or at least sometimes it can sound that way. For example, when Christy, my wife, and I were having our third child, we were really excited and we invited another couple to join us for dinner. And we were talking about how blessed we were, that God had blessed us with another child. And then this couple, thank God they had the courage to say something. She said that she had been trying for years to have a child of her own. So when we say that we are blessed, it also sounds like I'm saying that they are not. And that stings. That's not honest. That's not true. So, Christy and I, we changed our language. Instead of saying that we were blessed with the things that God has offered to us in our life, we started saying that we were thankful for what God is doing in the world. It's like when someone survives an accident and they say, I've been so blessed to make it to this day. It sounds like you're saying that those who didn't survive are not blessed, that they are have-nots. And I don't think that's what God intends. So we change our language from blessing to thanksgiving. You can certainly be thankful for making it to another day. You can certainly be thankful for the blessings in your life. We have to be careful not to drive apart have versus have not in this kingdom of God. The kingdom of God is a place where the world is turned upside down, where have and have not is turned on its head. But it's not that David becomes Goliath and Goliath becomes David. God is not Robin Hood stealing from the rich to give to the poor. Think of the feeding of the 5,000. There was a young boy who had food, and these multitudes didn't have anything. He could have said, God has blessed me and I have this, and you have not been blessed and you are out of luck. No, they sat down together and shared what they have. Iron Man put on a powerful suit to fight for the have-nots of the world. Jesus does things differently. Instead of putting on this powerful suit, Jesus emptied himself, not to fight for the have-nots of the world, but to become one, so that have and have not might come together, so that the dividing line between the two would be crushed under the weight of the cross. Yes, there is have and there is have not, but there's also the kingdom of God, in which both sides sacrificially give of themselves for the other.